Hi guys, welcome back. Thanks for obviously the continued support for these events, Mobile London, and these talks that we're now having with developers, understanding a bit more about their personal journeys and their experiences. Today I'm speaking with Eric Decanini. He is an Android developer at End Clothing. Eric, for the guys who don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, so I'm working in London at, as you said, at End Clothing as part of the Android team. And I'm fairly young, I'm still 19. And I've only been developing professionally, as you'd call it, or commercially, I think would be the better term, for only coming up to a year. Although I've been officially an Android developer for coming up to 5 years now, from the moment I started trying to learn it.
Yeah, and I know we've obviously spoke before, Eric. You're like you said, you're pretty new into the commercial side of things. For a pretty young developer as well. What sort of got you into Android at the start? Then, what was sort of the first way you got drawn towards this?
So I've always been sort of interested in programming from a very young age. It started out in I don't know if anyone out there has heard of the game Warcraft 3. They have a little built-in thing called World Editor where you can sort of create your own games, your own maps. And as a kid, I always enjoyed playing around that kind of stuff. So I almost definitely knew that I was going to do programming as a career. I made the horrible mistake of trying to get in with C++, not knowing how insane and difficult it actually is compared to most other standard languages. But eventually, I had a short around two period time of my life where I didn't happen to have a computer anymore, and all I had with me was a pretty low standard Android phone and an equally low standard Android tablet. So to try and make up for how low the specs were, I tried to do a lot of pimping, sort of routing both of them, installing custom ROMs, and also just having fun tweaking with lots of different launchers. And that sort of built up my interest over time in Android.
Yeah.
So eventually, that was all in the Philippines when that was happening. So after that, when I came to the UK, I immediately started picking up Android as Android programming, Android development. 5 years later, here I am.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, you obviously picked this up from an early age. When you started developing, what sort of languages were you using in the start? Was it just primarily Java, or were you looking into Kotlin as well? What sort of?
So when I started learning Android development, everything was Java. This was only about a year before the whole Kotlin revolution. And I do have to admit, Java was all right, It's still a good language even to this day, but it's still undeniable that it's one of the most useful programming languages out there. But if I'm not mistaken, it was at Google I/O 2017 where I watched the bit where they announced Kotlin, and I just fell in love immediately.
Okay.
How beautiful Kotlin looked compared to the Java counterpart of the code that would perform the same functionality. It was just insane to look at. And even to this day, it's like when I see something in Java and see something in Kotlin, it's like, it just blows me every time how much Kotlin's improved for making code more concise, more null safe, type safe, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, fair enough. And obviously, like you said, you got that experience with Java and Kotlin. In your current role, is it mainly Kotlin you're using? Are you using the latest tech? Are you still getting to use both sort of platforms?
Yeah, at End right now, I still definitely have to use both Java and Kotlin.
Yeah.
As with most places, we do want to make the move to Kotlin, although there is still much legacy code that still needs to be dealt with. And refactoring the whole code base isn't the easiest job, especially when you've got a lot of other things in the roadmap.
Okay, No worries, no worries. And obviously, like we're saying, you're pretty early in your career, and I know when we've spoken on the phone before, you sort of mentioned you've had awards for like personal apps and apps that you've been developing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you had your first award when you were in secondary school, was it? You were around 16?
Yeah.
What was that award? And what did you do?
So this wasn't too long after I started developing. After about 1 year of learning and just experimenting with different stuff, I decided maybe it's about time I make my own app. And I was still doing my GCSEs. I was just finishing year 10 by when I decided to start this app. And, I was in school, so I thought it would have been appropriate to go with a school assistant or a school planner type of app. I remember looking into one before and seeing that they're nice, but they all look a little bit confusing, a little bit more convoluted. So I had the idea of just making a simple one that offered the same functionality you'd find in the other ones, but something that looked simple and beautiful.
Okay.
So,
and was this something you did by yourself, or was this like you worked with other people on the app, or how was that?
I had a few friends help me with little bits here and there, but the main part of us was we were a team of two, me and one other guy who goes by the name Reese Tozer, and he was the designer for the whole thing. So everything going from the app's UI to all the different graphical assets, icons, and images in the app, which was very much needed because my Photoshop skills at the time were pretty much non-existent.
Okay.
I've gotten a little bit better now, not amazingly better, but yeah, it was me and Reese at the time.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. And sorry, what was the award that you achieved there? Sorry, what was that award called?
It was the Essex Digital Award.
Okay.
It's a thing. It's a thing they did every year. I don't know if they're still doing it every year now, but there's this thing called the Digital Awards, and they do it in all sorts of different areas in the country, different counties. So Essex being the local one, I decided to join it because why not?
Okay, fair enough. And so obviously after you'd done all this, you finished secondary school and sort of went to college. Is that where you progressed your knowledge then within sort of mobile development? What is that what you picked, or?
Yeah, so in college, I didn't get the choice of an actual mobile development course. If I searched a bit harder, then maybe I probably could have found a BTech on it somehow. But I felt like I wanted to go the more traditional route when it came to college, so I picked up maths, physics, and computer science.
Okay.
And for the most part, I lived a pretty standard college life. But outside my college hours, I decided to start my blog early in my first year of college. So that was about October 2018. And that's really what got me to the next level in terms of my learning, in terms of my confidence in development, because having that blog really got me over that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Okay.
And it really paid off a couple of years later, where at the time it was hard to get any traction at all, still being a new blog.
Yeah.
But I've watched the YouTube videos of people who've run successful blogs. I've seen the guides, and the secret there was really to just keep going. So that's what I decided to do. And now I think I've gotten to a good spot where I've got over 4,000 users visiting every month, reading my stuff. And that's actually a pretty amazing feeling.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Apart from that, I think what the blog really helped me most with was how much I learned from it, because having to roll out a new blog post every week meant that I had to learn something new every week. And it really made me look at what sort of technologies, what sort of libraries are important in the ecosystem right now.
Yeah.
So I started looking for what technologies you'd find in job offers for Android development. And one by one, I started learning them. And as I learned them, I shared them to the rest of the world through my blog.
Yeah.
And by the time that I started by the time that I finished college and started looking for a job, I was equipped with all these skills, almost purely thanks to my blog.
Yeah, and so would you have said then when you got your role, did the blog definitely help? Would you say that's something you used to sort of show the future employer that you were up to date with the latest tech, you had knowledge on this? Is that something that you used as a tool?
Yes, definitely. The blog was definitely a game changer when I went looking for a job. It was, I wasn't in the greatest position when I was looking because, just finished college, very young, and zero commercial experience. Even though I've done some contract work before, in the eyes of many employers, not to having done a permanent job means zero experience, flat, no way around it. But the blog sort of helped mitigate that. It helped me stand out in another way. And if it wasn't for that blog, then I don't think I'd be at the point where I am today.
Okay, fair enough. And apart from obviously the blog talks about a lot of tech that you knew about, that you had experience with or knowledge about. Do you have do you have your own portfolio for personal projects? Is that's something you had as well, or?
Yeah. So it being a personal website, I obviously have my blog, but I also use it as a place where I can show off my other stuff. So it goes without saying, there's my portfolio, which I included the app from before, as well as another app I made a bit more recently, a Flutter soundboard, just a game soundboard kind of thing. And I also used the chance to put in my contract work, of course, with their permissions.
No worries. Yeah. Well, like you said, it's from a young age. It's probably pretty clear what you sort of wanted to do and what industry you were looking to get into. And obviously now, like you mentioned, you've done sort of a contract work as well, and now obviously the perm role with End Clothing. With that in mind, is that all you do, or do you still have roles that you do on the side, or do you have personal projects that you're currently working on the side of a permanent position?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd say almost to the point that I'm killing myself, actually. So outside my hours at End Clothing, there's a number of stuff I'm doing. So first of all, I'm doing some contract work that's actually closer to Flutter.
Oh, really?
I started developing an interest in Flutter just because the prospect of hybrid mobile development's been attracting me more and more lately. Just like I'm thinking of this in a business perspective, where we didn't have the budget to spend for the time and effort it would take to make two native apps. If you wanted an Android and an iOS app, then hybrid's definitely what you should be going for. And Flutter is easily one. It's arguably the best one out there if you want to do hybrid development.
Okay, did you find that was easy to pick up? Obviously, yourself being an Android background and Flutter being sort of connected from Google, was that easy to pick up for yourself, or?
It actually was, yeah. It's many of the concepts are very similar. Flutter, I don't think, is very difficult on its own. It uses a declarative UI thing, which is what Android and iOS are trying to catch up to right now with Swift UI and Jetpack Compose. And sort of the workings of Dart as a programming language is very similar to Kotlin in a way, or Java, I guess in the sense that they're both that they're all C-based languages, really.
Yeah. And is that something you're using them for personal projects? Have you actually created any applications yet using Flutter, or is this fairly new?
My own applications, not at the moment, although I've only really been using it for the contract work I've been doing. Although I do plan to make something in the near future using Flutter, because it's about time that I make something that worked with iOS as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, definitely. I agree. Obviously, a lot of companies, more startups, like you mentioned, instead of having two developers at the moment, are sort of looking at cross-platform, whether it's Flutter, React Native, Ionic. There's obviously a few different platforms out there at the moment. But Yeah, no, look, Eric, I want to say obviously thanks for your time today. It's really good to hear about your background and how you sort of got into Android at such a young age, and how you've always got your first commercial role working in London. And from speaking with you, obviously sounds like it's going very well. But yeah, look, thanks for your time today, mate. Really appreciate
Likewise,
that.
thank you.
Obviously, take care of yourself.
You too.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.